year-end fund balance of $79.084 million. And the projected use of fund balance is mainly due to the expenditures related to Hurricanes Helene and Milton, and were partially offset by greater than budgeted revenues. Looking at the general fund revenue, we had a soft close estimate of $517.5 million, which is about $11.9 million over the amended budget and about $5.6 million over the third quarter estimate. Part of the increase in the third quarter, part of the increase from the third quarter estimates is related to about $2.7 million in FEMA disaster revenue received during the year from various past disasters. Most of the increase in revenue is due to actual collections that were better than our conservative adopted revenue budget. Many of our major revenue categories performed better than budget expectations. And as seen as a slide, you can see franchise taxes, utility taxes, investment earnings, and community service taxes were some of those big increases we see. This slide shows the 14.67% core general fund target of $57.231 million for FY25, and our 20% general fund group of funds target of $78.338 million, and the estimated general fund balance at the end of FY25. We estimate that the 14.67 core general fund target will be exceeded by $21.853 million, and the 20% target by $49.96 million. This estimates do not include the approximately $11.7 million in FY26 supplemental appropriation rollover amounts that will be discussed later in the presentation that reduce the general fund balance, and therefore the amounts over target if fully expended by $10.481 million after accounting for about $1.25 million in associated grant revenue with those rollovers. So let's look at supplemental appropriations that are needed to close out FY25 for the general fund. The appropriations on this slide for the general fund total about $17.605 million, and the amounts listed for the first 5 items are for budget authority only, and all amounts, expenditure amounts are included in the $529.335 million of total expenditure estimates that was included on our previous slides. Taking a look at some of the major changes, the engineering amount is needed to cover greater than budgeted expenses for engineering services, salary and benefits, storm expenses, and less charges to CIP projects than budgeted. On the enterprise facilities amount, this is for budget authority needed for the remediation and repair costs for Tropicana Field that were approved under the emergency procurement powers during the storm. The fire rescue amount is needed to cover increased costs for overtime related to staffing shortages due to vacancies and the storm disaster events. There's also additional for vehicle repair and maintenance and employee health services. The stormwater pavement and traffic operations amount is needed to cover the budgeted expenses and greater than budgeted expenses in overtime, equipment usage, and storm expenditures. For the supplement appropriation is needed to transfer revenues from the sale of property on MLK South to the Housing Capital Improvement Fund. That's the $5.98 million. There's also supplemental appropriations needed to transfer funds to the disaster short-term financing 2024 and 2025 funds for debt interest, principal payments, and fees. The transfer to the PNC debt fund is needed is for the FY26 payment, and the General Capital Improvement Fund transfer is the balance of the scooter share program revenue that was unused to the Complete Streets project, and the FEMA funds is to fix a Scribner's error for the Waterfront Park sod replacement project where we had a wrong amount included in the resolution. There are 3 funds that need increases to their subsidy amount for FY25. They are the Mahaffey Theater, Tropicana Field, and Port. Mahaffey Theater and Tropicana Field were both $80,000, and the Port is at $100,000. There's other funds that also need supplemental appropriations to clean up the FY25 budget. I'll go over a couple of the highlights on this one, and the information can be found on section 1, pages 4 through 5 of the backup. There's $33,000 needed in the EMS fund to cover greater than budget expenses for vehicle purchases. There's $10,000 needed to transfer funding from the Baber Harbor TIF to the TIF CIP fund to provide additional funding for the Innovation District project. $9,000 is needed from Mahaffey Theater to cover greater than budget expenses for engineering and other improvements, and this one did need a subsidy increase. $21,000 is needed for Coliseum to cover greater than budgeted expenses for other specialized services, equipment, and janitorial services. There's $2.685 million needed for the Disaster Short-Term 2024 Fund, and this is to cover cost of issuance, interest payments, and prepayments made from the advance insurance proceeds. There's $531,000 needed for the Disaster Short-Term 2025 Fund to cover the cost of issuance, interest, and unused fee expenditures. There's $2.782 million in the Water Cost Stabilization Fund to cover a transfer to the Water Resources Operating Fund for higher than budgeted interest earnings. $2.2 million is needed for the Stormwater Utility Fund to cover greater than budget expenses in overtime, equipment usage, and storm expenditures. There's $3.598 million in the Stormwater Debt Fund to cover greater than budget debt payments for the 2025 A series. And there is $51,000 in the Airport Fund to cover greater than budgeted expenses for other equipment and operating supplies. There are 6 internal service funds that require increases in authority for FY25. More information on these funds can be found in section 1, pages 5 through 6 of the backup. For fleet management, the overage is related to higher than budgeted expenditures for repair and maintenance materials, parts, and equipment, and the fund has sufficient resources to cover the additional expenses. Under the equipment replacement fund, the costs are associated with vehicle and equipment purchases due to 2 prepaid fire trucks being placed into service during FY25. And again, this fund has sufficient resources to cover these expenses. The Municipal Office Building Fund has increased costs for salaries, benefits, electric, and facility repairs and renovations. The Health Insurance Fund increase is needed to cover greater than budget expenses for employee medical and dental premiums, and there's sufficient resources in the fund to cover this amount. The General Liabilities Claims Fund is due to greater than budget expenses for claims and court costs due to higher than anticipated claims payments. And an increase in the commercial insurance is needed to cover greater than budget expense for insurance proceeds, the corresponding recording of the city's 10% participation fee, and transfers to the Disaster Short-Term Financing 2024 Fund to repay and make prepayments on the Series 2024 Disaster Funding non-ad valorem note. On the CIP side, we have a number of supplemental appropriations needed in the various funds. I'll go over a couple of the highlights. Section 2, pages 6 through 9 of the backup show information on all of these transactions. In the Housing Capital Improvement Funds, we see the transfer of revenues from the sale of property on MLK South from the Housing Capital Improvement Fund to the Economic Stability Fund to repay the Deuces Rising loan. Originally, when we had this budget, you saw there's also a transaction in the general fund. We had it budgeted going straight from the general fund to the Economic Stability Fund, and Finance asked us to put it to the housing fund first before we moved it, so we had to add that additional authority to move it around. In the General Capital Improvement Fund, there are transactions to move interest earnings from project closeouts back to the original funds that funded those projects. There's also the same thing with TIF transfers. There was project closeouts that were funded through the various TIF funds, so we need to transfer those funds back to the corresponding TIF funds at the end of the year. There is a small amount for the disaster short-term financing transfer where there was a project closeout for a project that was funded from that disaster fund, and so we were transferring it back to that fund. Same with the transfer to MOB, peer operating, and those are all where project closed out and we're transferring back to the original funds. There are supplement appropriations to, the bottom three are supplement appropriations to 3 projects where there was other project closeouts for either Sunken Gardens or Boyd Hill that we had funding left over, so the departments requested to move it to these projects to complete them. And then the waterfront park sod replacement is where we had that Scrivener's error, so this is fixing the appropriation amount for that. Again, with the tax increment CIP, there's interest earned on funds that need to be transferred back to the operating funds in these projects. For the Rec and Culture Capital Improvement Fund, it was a project closeout of a project that they wanted to move the funds to the St. Pete Municipal Beach at TI. Let's see. In the multimodal impact fee, a supplement appropriation of $67,000 is needed for the 71st Street Trail Connector project, and there's a corresponding rescission from the Complete Streets FY19 project to provide the additional funding needed. In the downtown parking CIP fund, a supplement appropriation is needed to transfer $4.2 million to the parking revenue fund resulting from a project closeout of the parking structure, downtown parking, and new meter technology projects. The first Water Resources Capital Projects Fund appropriation of $344,000 is needed to transfer the FY24 water closeout fee revenues or impact fees to the Water Resources Debt Fund. And the last 4 water resources projects are the customer-driven projects, and the fund received a proportionate increase in revenue to cover the increased costs. In the Airport Capital Projects Fund, a supplement appropriation is needed to transfer $142,000 from the CIP fund to the Airport Operating Fund. And then in the Port Capital Project Fund, a $520 supplement appropriation is needed to cover city personnel costs associated with the Port Master Plan project. At the end of each fiscal year, we commit or assign certain amounts within the general fund. These 6 categories were established when Council adopted the FY26 budget, and now we have projections for how much will need to be committed for each of these categories. The operating reappropriations or encumbrance amount in the general fund is $6.372 million. These are for encumbrances that have been paid for in FY25 and are included in our $529.335 million expenditure amount, but won't become actuals until FY26. The land sales proceeds amount is $65,000. QTI is just under 15. The local agency participation program is $857,000. The courtesy docks and slips is $160,000, and Seagrass Mitigation Bank is $2.6 million. A full list of the FY25 operating appropriations is located in Section 5, pages 11 through 12 of the backup, and there are a total of 41 funds that have entered into a contract or legal commitment to spend funding in FY25, but were unable to complete the purchase or did not receive the deliverable until FY26. These expenses were paid with FY24 resources, but will become an actual in FY26, and they've already been netted out from the beginning FY26 fund balances, so they will not have a budgetary impact on FY26. And in the general fund, there's $6.372 million, as we saw in the previous slide, that'll roll over automatically. $184,000 is related to the BP funded projects, and all of the general fund encumbrances are accounted for again in that $529.335 million estimate. And do we want to pause and take 25 questions before I move to 26, or keep going?
Council member or committee members, any questions on 25?
I only had just one question, Chair, on the transfers related to the tax increment financing in the downtown redevelopment district that have to do with the parking structure. There are 2 sums that has to do with the central garage. Is that what we're talking about? Is this because there was a 4610, 4.6 million, and then another 4.2 million?
Yeah, there was a project closeout. I guess there was a parking structure that's no longer occurring. So when they closed out the project, it was funded from 2 different sources. So part of it's going back to the TIF fund, and the other part from the parking revenue fund.
I was just wondering if that was that garage or is another garage that we're You see what I'm saying? Like, we put money into the central garage from the TIF. At some point, if you can answer that, because
You mean the orange station, the old
Yes.
police headquarters? That's different than this.
so I was just, okay, so I was curious what this is, because the numbers could add up almost the same.
Almost the same, 8 million-ish, yeah.
Right.
That one, we have paid 5 million of the 8 million, and we owe the other 3 million for the Edge Orange Station, old police headquarters location. I'm not sure which specific structure this one was meant to be.
I'll have to get with Evan.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is money that wasn't spent, so we're returning
Right.
it to original.
And that's what I thought, but the numbers kind of were
DDA.
similar to the other.
Yeah,
DDA.
they
The DDA
both of them were the
project.
same.
I think it might have been Denunzio.
That's what I,
Yes, it's the Denunzio.
that's what I thought. I was like, I think,
Okay.
I know.
Okay,
Good question.
thank you. That was all I had.
Okay. All right, let's move into 26. Thank you.
All right. So moving on to the general fund supplemental appropriations for FY '26. The FY '26 supplemental appropriation requests for both the general fund and other funds are mostly made up of items, programs, or projects that were budgeted for in FY '25, but due to timing or other circumstances were not purchased or completed before year end. Therefore, if the department has an unexpended appropriation left, they can request that to be rolled over to the next year to complete the project. Grants and our non-departmental appropriations to programs are a big chunk of these amounts because their fiscal years don't normally align with our budget fiscal year, so we have to roll over the remaining amounts between years. For the general fund, there's a total of 11.74 million in appropriations requested for FY '26 to be rolled over. Details of all these requests are located in section 6 between pages 13 and 15. 1.384 million is associated with the new and original BP resources. There's another 1.258 million that are grant related and are supported by grant revenue. And the net impact to the general fund balance will be a reduction of 10.481 million. So this slide mirrors the earlier FY '25 year-end slide and shows the impact of the FY '26 cleanup items on the general fund balance. Again, BP funds are separated from general fund operating. For the general fund operating column, we start with an estimated budget fund balance of 77.7 million. We then have FY '26 adopted budget, which includes 411.9 in revenue and expenditures. Next, we have 9.8 million in FY '25 appropriation requests to be rolled over to '26, and 555,000 in FY '26 supplemental appropriation requests. 6.189 million in prior year are the FY '25 encumbrances are then backed out since they're already accounted for in FY '25. And we also add back the 1.258 million in general grant revenue that's associated with those rollover requests. This leaves us with an estimated year-end fund balance of 68.6 million, which is an estimated reduction in fund balance of 9.1 million based on the FY '26 adopted budget and the proposed changes in the cleanup ordinance. On the BP side, we have a beginning fund balance of 1.385 million. No additional resources will be received during the year. We have the rollover appropriations requests that equal the amount of the remaining BP funds, and then the prior year encumbrance of 184,000. This estimated fund balance of BP resources will be 0, and this will reduce the general fund balance by 1.385 million. So when we combine the two columns, the total general fund estimated fund balance at the end of the year would be 68.6 million, and would use about 10.481 million in fund balance. And so going back to the slide shown at the beginning of the presentation, when you combine the FY '25 and FY '26 cleanup actions, the total estimated net impact to the general fund is a decrease of about 16.167 million in general fund balance. Just to give kind of a snapshot, when we looked at the third quarter estimates back in August, we thought we would use about 26 million in general fund balance, so this is an improvement. It is over that. A big chunk of that, about just over half, is related to revenue that we received that we weren't expecting, and then 3 million of that was FEMA revenue that we got towards the end of the year, and the rest is in expenses that we estimated would occur that didn't happen. So on the previous slide, the total amount requested by the general fund for FY '26 supplemental appropriations was 11.74 million. And this slide shows the requests summarized by department and administration. Additional information, again, is on pages 13 through 15 in section 6. I'll go over a couple of the highlights for each administration. The total for the general government administration is $2.216 million. City council's amount is to roll over funds to complete their office renovation. Mayor's office is for various programs and grants. Legal is for expected litigation and hiring of outside counsel. HR is for software and various training opportunities. And finance is for a cost, to continue the cost allocation plan and office facility renovations. The CEA, the Community Enrichment Administration, totals $1.593 million. For Parks and Recreation, it's to mainly roll over grant funding associated with the ELC CARE grant and the ELC stabilization grant. There's also some fundings to complete the trash receptacle replacements and park roll signs that they had budgeted for in FY25. The library request is to roll over unspent collection material funding for the Obama Main Library and for some IT purchases, other library repairs and renovations. The police amount of $1.374 million is to roll over grant funding for various grants and for the replacement of a crack equipment at the data center. Community Development Administration totals $2.984 million. Under the City Development Department, it's to roll over funds for the on-point sports consultant, arts tourism, microgrants and art grants. Planning and Development Services to roll over funds for the African American Heritage Trail signs. Transportation is to roll over funds for citywide transportation studies, the Cross Bay Ferry, and repair trail and counting equipment. In our Enterprise Facilities Department request is to roll over funding for Tropicana Field operating repairs. Economic and Workforce Development Department is to request rollovers for the District 2 Master Plan, Oak Lawn Cemetery, Corporate Relocation and Expansion Grants, Microfund Program, the Citywide Workforce Development Program, Rapid Roof Replacement, the Grow Smarter Economic and Workforce Initiative, Workforce Readiness Grants, and QTI, Main Streets, BOLI, and Business Support Corridor programs. In our Housing and Neighborhood Services, it totals just over $1 million. In the Housing and Neighborhood Services Administration, the request is to roll over funding for the We Are St. Pete funds. In Neighborhood Relations, it's amount to roll over for neighborhood partnership grants, mayor's mini grants, Keep Pinellas Beautiful, storm drain mural programs, and the tree mini grant program. There's $441,000 in codes for legal, other specialized services, printing, binding, training, and other office supplies, and other line items. For our Public Works Administration, this amount is about $2.7 million and includes funding to rollover funds for the Camp Citywide Facilities Condition Assessment, the Green Cycle Composting Grant, original additional BP projects, water quality and increasing native plants, and the training costs and office costs for new hires. The detailed information on the FY26 supplement appropriations request for other city funds can be found in sections pages 15 through 17 of the backup. There are 28 funds in total requesting rollover supplement appropriations in FY26. And I'll go over some of the highlights. The box on the left includes 12 funds where the appropriation request is to roll over unspent grant funding. In some of the housing funds, it's also to appropriate additional program revenue. The Water Resources Fund also has an additional project appropriation and rescission in their request. On the right-hand side, on the Affordable Housing Fund, we're rolling over the interfund loan for the funding for both the employee housing assistance and residential rehab programs. The Parking Revenue Fund request is to roll over funds for a parking study consulting services. The request for the South St. Pete Redevelopment District is to roll over their unspent funds for their various CRA programs. The Building Permit Special Revenue and Billing and Collection Fund requests are both to roll over unspent funds for the Tyler Navaline replacement project. The pier is to roll over funds for the pier playground repairs project, and Coliseum is for elevator repairs project. The Arts and Public Places Fund is to roll over funds for the Courageous 12 Monument and the Public Art Sunset Park mural. In the Sanitation Fund, there's various requests to roll over funding for other specialized services for legal and fiscal, other specialized services for securing structures, demo and securing in the codes department. And in the sanitation department, there's a supplement appropriation needed for some Series 0 clients to support the call center, parking lot improvements, furniture, replacing the RFID and recycling trucks, and replacement of sheds at 2 brush sites, and the CNG fuel assessment program or project. In the golf courses operating fund, it's needed to roll over funds for the purchase of 2 green mowers and a customer walkway at Mangrove Bay. And fleet management, it's funding for the GPS and telematics asset tracking training technology services contract renewal that was delayed and not completed in FY25. And in our technology services, we've got funding to purchase hardware and software maintenance costs and equipment to support city systems and the Tyler integration project. The health insurance fund is to roll over unexpected employee wellness funds. There are 3 supplemental appropriations requested for FY26 in this in our capital improvement funds. For the general CIP fund, there's a supplemental appropriation for complete streets, and for which is funded from the transfer of the scooter share revenue from the general fund, and some project closeouts of earlier projects that they requested to move into this project. For the citywide infrastructure capital improvement fund, there is a supplemental appropriation again for complete streets with funding available from project closeouts. And in the sanitation capital projects fund, there's a supplemental appropriation for the yard fencing project due to increased material costs. There are no transfers to the Art and Public Places Fund required at cleanup based on the different FY25 capital transactions. And we do have 1 project name change in the General Capital Improvement Fund. The Coliseum Ballroom Floor Project will be changed to the Coliseum Improvement Projects to encompass both the roof and floor replacements. All right, and that is the end of the presentation. If there's any questions.
Committee members, any questions on FY26? I don't think so. All right.
Mr. Chair, could I just
Yeah.
add in really quickly, and I'm sorry for the interruption, but just wanted to highlight a couple of things. Liz mentioned this earlier, but I did think it bears kind of reemphasizing. You know, at the third quarter, we had forecast a much larger use of fund balance to the tune of 28 million, I think it was, Liz, or 26. So we really have, you know, been very methodical about how we approached our recovery. As this committee will remember, you know, we borrowed resources not once but twice to help manage the impact to our general fund. So I just want to, before we move from this, just congratulate Liz and Erica for coming up with a plan to how to manage through these expenses that we knew we were going to incur. And it really mitigated the impact to our general fund and leaves us in a fairly good place with respect to our recovery.
No, Tom, thanks for bringing that up. I certainly don't think that goes unnoticed, and so very thankful to everybody on the team from comparison to just a little over a month ago to now when looking at 25 and 26. So thanks for bringing that up, Tom. Vice Chair, go ahead.
And Tom, just to echo what the chair said, as soon as you mentioned the 16 million, I was so happy that you contrasted at that with the 26 million, because I had a note on it. So that's why I didn't mention anything, and probably no other committee member did. So very thankful for the work that you all have done. Thank you.
We just didn't want to make sure it was an error, so we didn't bring it up.
Don't
mention it doesn't exist.
Try to figure out where, you know, where the difference was, and that's why I knew that half was revenue, half was expenses, because
Yeah.
I had to make sure that was right.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's keep going.
Chair, I'm
Yes.
sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry,
You asked
absolutely.
for committee members' questions, but I'm.
I
not a committee
apologize.
member.
No, go ahead,
Thank
Councilmember Driscoll.
you. Regarding on slide 27, the the money that is going to be allocated for Complete Streets, and you said that part of that was for closing out projects that were already done. Can you break that down a little bit further? Because what I want to know is how much of that can go into new projects? Is there a net gain in funding for Complete Streets projects? Because that is something that came up a lot during our budget discussions.
Yeah,
And,
so a majority, so of the 382, 218 is the transfer, the amount for the transfer from the general fund to the capital improvement fund. That's not from project closeout, so that's net gain.
okay,
And the other, you can see that if you look at page 18 in the description, we listed the project closeouts that funded, the additional funding going to Complete Streets. And depending on, how you look at it, some of them were for, project closeouts for the rectangular rapid flashing beacon projects that we had funding left over that we moved to Complete Streets. So that wasn't technically in the Complete Streets program before, it was a separate appropriation. So even though it's not net new city funding, I think it would be new Complete Streets funding. So, you could look at that again. The closeouts in the the citywide infrastructure were from neighborhood transportation
Right.
management. And so again, those weren't specifically for Complete Streets, they were in other programs, but the department requested those to be funded, moved to the Complete Streets program to enhance that funding.
okay, so those are the
Yep.
closeouts, and the closeout from the 383, you've got two project closeouts in there, so what is the net, like, what's the new funding?
I mean, I would consider all of it to be new funding for Complete Streets. If you're talking new city funding, it would be the 218 that's coming from the general fund, that program revenue that came in that we didn't need for the operating costs.
Okay.
But
Yes.
the other ones weren't Complete Street projects, they were for other programs. So technically, for me, it's new funding for Complete Streets,
Yeah.
not new city funding, though.
Right, so it's just your definition versus what I
Yeah.
was thinking. Okay, got it. All right, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions? All right. Thank you. All right, we're going to move into fourth quarter financial and investment reports. We got Erica, and my guess is Tom's coming up too.
So while he's getting ready, may I ask a
Yeah,
couple more
absolutely.
questions
Go
while
ahead.
he's getting ready? So, back looking at, I just need to know what these things are that I have been reading about. The, in the, on page 13 for the mayor's office, there's consulting costs for the Office of Community Impact. So I was wondering what that was. Rob, maybe you know.
Was this in the cleanup that you're referencing?
Consultant, yeah. It's $100,000 for consulting costs for the Office of Community Impact.
So I know
What
it
project
was-
is that for?
It was funding we had in the FY '25 budget that didn't get expended, so they asked we could roll it over so they could continue it in FY '26. And I think they're still working through exactly what that program's gonna be. I know they have a bunch of RFPs that are in process, so
Okay,
I don't know all the specifics, but I could get with Amanda and see if I can get some more information on that.
okay. And then I wanted to ask, in Economic and Workforce Development, the Main Streets Program, there was $24,808.
And that's the FY '25 amount that hasn't been paid out yet. So it's the 25 commitments, and so they don't have a requisition or a PO attached to it yet. So we need to roll it over so we can make those 25 payments in FY '26. So it's not new funding for FY '26, it's to cover the commitments we had in FY '25.
That was another one that came up a few times on funding for Main Streets and getting that sort of modernized, at modernized levels to keep up with the costs that they have in our Main Streets districts. So I'm looking for some kind of an increase to end up in there.
So this year's cleanup, because we're using fund balance, we're
Right.
just rolling over 25 stuff to 26. We're not adding new things to the 26 budget.
Right.
So what we can look at is next year's cleanup and see if we're, if we've got FEMA stuff coming and we're increasing our fund balance, that's when we can start adding new stuff
Yeah.
like we have in past years.
Well,
We just really didn't do that
thank
this
you.
year
Yes.
because of the fund balance issue.
Yes, I understand that, and as we go through the year, I don't really want to wait. I really would like to get these, things like this back on track. And so throughout the year, let's try to identify funds that can be moved around. We can move things around during the year, as this comes up. So I'm looking forward to having more conversation about that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Okay,
Good morning.
good morning.
As we look at our quarter three ending and compare it to quarter two, not a great deal of change in our holdings. We have both the general policy and the alternate investment policy reporting $1,149,000,000 in book value, and that's approximately 40 million less than when we looked at this at the end of June. The market value increased, or reported at 23.5 million, up from the 22.8 that we reported at June 30th. In the general policy, looking at portfolios, we're reporting 29 million in the debt service. That is monies that we needed to make our debt payments on October 1st. Right below that are the bond proceeds. We expended 24 million in bond proceeds through the quarter, so we're spending them down, and so decrease there. The very bottom item in that side is the water cost stabilization. That is the 70% of the holdings. Just as a note, as of October 1st, that went down to 65%, and as we move over to the other side on the alternate investment policies, where we see water cost stabilization there, that's the shift where that is moving up to 35%. We made that change in October, so we're reporting that in the future, but that was a change of about 1.6 million. And looking at the parks preservation, the gain there, and then the two trust funds there. So just not a lot of change quarter over quarter in our holdings. The investment activity that occurred during the year, there were calls and maturities in the prior quarter of a little over 50 million compared to 35.5 in the current quarter. Purchases in the prior quarter were 2 million. We did 15.3 million in the current quarter.
Tom, would you mind moving the slide on the screen, please? Thank
Oh,
you.
I'd be happy to. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Have to be multifaceted.
I know you're talented enough.
Purchases for the quarter were in the long term. The maturities were 30.5 million in the long term and 5 million in the water cost stabilization fund. A little bit on the activity. Then as we move in to take a look at our performance, in the alternate policy, the liquid funds, which we have typically call money markets, we had an average for the quarter of 400 million in there. We earned 1,471,000 on earnings there for a rate of return annualized of 4.32. Right below that, reporting the activity when we look at for the 12 months ending September 30th, a balance of 422 million, 18.6 million in earnings, rate of return annualized of 4.48 on those liquid holdings. On the fixed income, or excluding the money markets for the alternate policy, we had an average book value of 734 million, investment earnings for the quarter of 2.3, annualized rate of return 3.78. Over the 12-month period, average book value 755 million, earnings 27.5 million. That earnings annualizes out to 3.64. Combining both the money markets and the fixed income for the year, the average was $1,177,000,000. Earnings over that 12-month period, $46 million, for annualized rate of return of 3.91. Moving into compliance. On the left side, we're reporting our liquidity, and in the gray box near the bottom, we see a minimum requirement, which is 2 months of expenditures, 162 million, and we are in compliance there, well exceeding what we need in that area. On the right side of the screen, we have a few yellow boxes there. And yellow meaning we're not on our diversification in compliance. There are 2 of them under the short-term portfolio and also under the bond proceeds. Historically, we were reporting our liquid holdings as money markets, which allowed us 100% into those portfolios. Those are actually liquid, intergovernmental liquid investment pools, LGIPs, which we, under our current policy, are limited to 50%. This is something that we're working with our investment advisors to look at how we should move forward with this. This is actually how we operate. This is how we've been doing it with the change in the policy and identifying how we needed to report this. This popped up. So we will be coming back sometime in the future to address that. In the water cost stabilization, there is a recurring item in there, which is the corporate bonds. This, when we buy, we look at the diversification schedule and we're in compliance there, but over time, things shift, and particularly in this one, as we're moving money between both sides. So we have about a $2 million, just a little less than $2 million that we're off on that. That's the 32% with the 30 on the corporate bonds. That will remedy itself in April. There's a bond in there that will mature, and when we reinvest, we'll be in compliance there. But I also want to note that we have equity and pool cash. We had the maturity in the water cost stabilization during the quarter. We held those funds until we got into October, so we would have funds available for the rebalancing. That rebalancing was about $1.6 million, but we had $5 million there that we reported that in our portfolio holdings, the cash in there. But we wanted to point out that it's in the policy, it doesn't allow any cash in there. So that's why we're out of compliance. We've taken care of that. We took the 1.6 million and bought the index funds, and we reinvested the remainder of that. Looking at credit risks, basically the same report you saw last time. There is one change. Intel went from a rating, went down 1 tick. There's a $5 million. That one matures in August of 2027. We'll continue to monitor that, but that was just a slight tick in that, but we do report those changes to the committee. Moving on now to the last area that we have, which are the index funds. The index funds on the screen we have here showing the activity over the past 10 years since inception in 2015, showing the initial cost at the very top of 20 million, and then the activity are on the lines below that. When we were required to liquidate the 7 times and to make the purchases for the rebalancing. So we're looking now at a value computed floor of 32 million. So that is the original plus the reinvesting the gains that we're required to do. So we see the 32 million on the lower right. And in the yellow box directly below that, our policy sets a threshold of 110% of that computed threshold. So we're looking at the threshold of 35.2 million. Market value at 9/30 is 33.9. So we've got a little ways to go, but it's always amazed me when I think we'll never make it over that, we continue to do that, and we have done that 7 times in the past 10 years. This report is showing, again, the book value of the threshold, but taking you down more to the bottom, because we do show all of the instruments there. But in that yellow band on the bottom, we see since inception that we've had dividends of 6.4 million, and with the transfers of just under 10 million. So in the 10-year period, we've transferred to the Water Cost Operating Fund $16.3 million.
Thank you. Do you want to take any questions on investments before we move on to debt?
Committee members? No, let's keep rocking and rolling.
All right,
Thank
thank
you.
you, Tom. This morning, we're going to talk about general governmental debt first. We have 135 million outstanding as of 9/30, with interest 31 million, so a total debt principal and interest of 166.8 million. To note in here, we have the bottom line is the BOA non-ad valorem letter of credit. That's the non-revolving letter of credit. We have only drawn down 35 million of the available balance as of 9/30. So we keep monitoring this for spend down on the TROP and just do draws as needed for invoice payments. Notable on here, the PNC taxable non-ad valorem revenue was paid off October 1st, so that one, it will not be on here next time. So we've paid off the Tropicana debt as of 10/1. Next slide, this is a bar graph. The teal is the principal and the yellow is the interest. You'll see a large amount in 2028 because that assumes the repayment of the revolving line of credit in 2028. If we do not have all our FEMA or insurance reimbursements by then, we can elect to go over a longer period and amortize that longer. This is our funding sources for the same general governmental debt. The funding source for the line of credit is not in here. That one's more difficult to amortize out, but we do have the funding source for the December 2024 50 million note in here. So you'll see that the 2026, there's $500,000 here transferred from Pro Sports. So that is the last payment of the Tropicana PNC debt. And you'll see that we use the penny for Pinellas, transfers from 1105, our TIF district, in the general fund to subsidize this debt. The majority coming from the general fund is our public service tax revenue bonds, and then the other amounts are the amounts for the disaster notes that we are waiting on funding reimbursements from FEMA and insurance. On this screen, this is the disaster short-term financing funded projects under the Series 2024 non-ad valorem revenue note, and there's a spelling error in the header, that we issued in December 2024 for $50 million. You can see here we spent $30 million already out on the debris removal, and we have appropriated through different appropriations these different locations across the city for permanent work in Fund 3001. So we've moved along here in committing or spending most of this down. There's just a little bit of available balance as they're working through these permanent projects. We have paid almost $2 million back on this note. So you'll see on the first slide, it was only $48 million outstanding. As we've received FEMA reimbursements and insurance proceeds that can be applicable for this, we are applying them as prepayments without penalty. So we don't have to pay interest on any of those. So we're managing that every day. The next slide is in reference to our Bank of America non-revolving credit facility that we issued this spring for the $85 million. This one is the variable SOFR rate. So this is a history of the SOFR rate over the last month. And you can see it's moving more than we saw before, but not materially as we would expect. And I expect this to continue to decrease as we go into these decrease in interest rates from the Fed. The next slide has a lot of information about this that I think is really important. So we have $85 million available for this non-revolving line of credit. The draws on the screen, you'll see in April we drew $191,000 for our closing costs. And then in June, we drew down another 35 million for estimated debris removal and permanent work costs. So part of this, we have an interest quarterly payment we have to pay. So far we paid 293,000 in interest, but we also have an unused fee. So the unused fee, we have only paid about 50,000 in unused fees. This fee goes away as soon as we draw down 50% of the 85 million. We have still not done any draws in October. I think a lot of invoices I expect to be coming in the next few months as we see more activity wrapping up at Tropicana, and engineering is confirming the work was done to their standards. So I expect to see more drawdowns in the next couple months, and we won't have that unused fee. But on the other side, we aren't accruing interest on more than 35 million. So there's a balance there. At the bottom of the screen, you can see the appropriations that have been taken to council so far for this note. So we've had 60 million in appropriations. 34 million has been debris removal, of which we only needed to use 31.8 million on debris removal invoices. So we had some excess there that's available. And there is commitments outstanding, but still some available contracts for TROP that as of 9/30 were not executed. So these will be fully committed, I assume, by December 31st when we report again. So for appropriations wise, that at 9/30 there is almost 25 million that has not been appropriated against this 85 million note. This is a snapshot of the city's enterprise funds and internal service fund debt. So at the top, public utility water resources program has 712 million in principal outstanding at 9/30, 352 million in interest, so $1,065 million in principal and interest outstanding over the next 30 years. So those generally go out 30 years. We just issued some issuances, 25A and B during the summer, so that maturities of that is 2055. We have a 2025C we're marketing, upcoming in December. Next month is December already. So we'll have that additional 140 million allocated, the water portion, to this balance as well. Public utility stormwater portion is 30 million principal, 18 million interest, so 49 million in outstanding debt service. That has a portion of the 2025C as well that will be added on next quarter. Our outstanding sanitation debt is a non-ad valorem revenue note for the new sanitation building. That has outstanding 13.6 million in principal, 3 million interest, 16.7 in principal and interest together. That matures by 2038. We have also a non-ad valorem revenue note for the marina with just under 2 million outstanding in principal and 100,000 in interest for 1.9 million in principal and interest. That matures in 2031. The last is our equipment lease for the fleet department for public service radios. That has 1 million outstanding in principal and interest that will be paid off this December. All right. Questions on debt?
Any questions on debt?
Debt out today.
Okay.
Debris removal. Wanted to provide a snapshot of debris removal. It has not moved much since we showed you this last quarter. So we did a lot of different planning, budget and bringing it to council to have available revenue sources in the case that we did have 120 million in debris removal. Thankfully, our final number is the 92.9 million in debris removal and debris management cost. Between Helene and Milton, we have a breakout. The top is Helene. FEMA advanced us $6.3 million for Hurricane Helene debris removal. Only 284,000 was allocated to Helene. Looking at the cutoff of days and when we could pick up, there was just a methodology we had to pick with our vendors and with FEMA. So we have an excess FEMA advance of $6 million on the books. You'll see at year end that is not considered grant revenue because we did not earn it. And I'll come back to that in a minute. For Milton, we had availability of the 30.7 million from the FEMA advance. We issued that December note for 50 million and appropriated 30 million. We had some general fund balance, and then we issued the non-revolving letter of credit for 53 million approximate plan for debris removal. When it came down to it, we used the FEMA advance first for the 30.7 million, and then into the 30 million drawdown for the December note. And then we used the last remaining invoices, the 31.8 million, against the letter of credit. So we are done and working through the phases with FEMA right now to go through reimbursement. They're asking their questions. Boreana's team, internal audit, is working diligently with FEMA to get that reimbursement, and this project closed to us. They owe us about, $61 million for Hurricane Milton. Most likely, they'll send us $55 million. When they approve it, they'll net out the advance, and that's when I can apply that $6 million extra for Helene. So accounting rules get in our way, but we do have that advance sitting out there. So I think at the end of the day, we'll not transfer money back and forth. We'll do it once, and hope that is soon. Right. We'll go into quarterly pension. All right, so the pension plans, the first slide here has ERS, fire, and then police in these bar graphs. This is their balance of they have balanced portfolios. You see different colors are different types of investments they each hold. They each have somewhat similar methodology, as we see as they change kind of throughout the quarters with their investment advisors and what they're buying. But you can see that a majority of them still have a large amount of teal domestic stock, their traditional yellow international stock, and green fixed income. That's what we're used to seeing in a balanced portfolio. And then these other range of colors is the different strategies of alternative investments that the pension plans have gone with different managers to try to get that rate of return long-term in our pension plans. So the next slide has the last 5 quarters cost and market value. And thankfully, we've had a great last 5 quarters. You can see the trends are all positive of an unrealized gain for each 3 of the plans. At 9/30/2025, ERS had a market value of $614 million, almost $110 million unrealized gain. Firefighters retirement system had market value of $364 million, an unrealized gain of $38 million. And police officers retirement system had a market value of almost $604 million, with a market gain of $81 million. So this will be that snapshot that you will see come into play for the 2027 budget year's annual required contribution for the pension plans. So the last 2 years we've had great year-end snapshots. So it really it factors into our funding. So we expect those actual reports out in the next couple months to report back to you on the funding for 2027. The next slide is a snapshot of their percent funded based on the actuarial accrued liability at 9/30. Again, these are numbers from the 10/1/24 actuary report. So as soon as we have updated actuarial accrued liability numbers, we will have that added here. But you can see that ERS in the first column has been trending in the 80s for the last fiscal year each month, and ended at 9/30/25 at 89.34% funded. Fire has been trending over 100%, and they are at 116% at 9/30. And police has been trending in the 80s as well, and ended 9/30/25 at 86.68%.
Any questions on pension?
All right.
Okay.
Budget versus actual. So our report has very detailed statements for each of the operating and special revenue funds at the city, if you want to go into that. I know we had a great presentation from budget earlier this morning, so I'll just do a snapshot of the general fund in bar graph form over the last 5 fiscal years. And you can see that September 2025 bar graph is much larger, and this is primarily due to the hurricane activity. So we have that green section there is our grant revenue. So in that grant revenue, we have the $31 million from FEMA for the debris removal that we were able to recognize, and also a few, maybe $3 million in other receipts from FEMA for emergency protective measures. Note B here in yellow is transfers in. So that represents the 60 million transferred in from the disaster notes to the general fund to pay for that debris. Otherwise, they're pretty consistent when you look across the bar chart. This is the same view for expenditures in the general funds group. Trends for the last 5 years, if you look at September 30th, 2025, we are a much higher jump as well, and this is also coincides with the debris removal. The orange is land transfers for that $10 million sale. So we have the transfers that Liz spoke about out of the general fund to pay off notes related to that land sale. And note D is the 92, almost 93 million in debris removal costs. The next sheet is the numbers for budget versus actual in the general fund for revenues. And you can see, like Liz mentioned really eloquently today, some of the assumptions were conservative when we were budgeting in the beginning of the year, like different taxes and interest earnings that have exceeded budget. And the next page is the general fund BVA September 30th, 2025. And the variances between this, I have to disclaim that the year-to-date actual column doesn't have encumbrances and cleanup in it. So it's not as great as when we look at it during the year because budget is working a lot of its magic on the BVAs with you guys today.
Awesome. Committee members, any questions? Nothing? I know. I just want to quickly thank Tom, Erica, and Tom. I was not able to be at this quarter's investment oversight committee, and so just thank you for handling that and just all the work that you do. Just wanted to say a thank you. I'm sorry I wasn't there, so that was great. All right, if there's no questions, thanks. All right, we're going to move into a quarterly review of procurement reports for July and August. So if there's any questions that we want to give Tom, and he'll report back via email with any answers. Councilmember Gabbard.
Let's see here. On July 2025, it's about halfway down the page, the FY25 Clam Bayou updated allocation. So if we could get some information on that. It was exactly $100,000. So I'd like to understand what that was. And then also if we could get just, I think I know what it was, but just to make sure that we understand, it's a little bit further up the page. The Hurricane Helene damages for the electrical work at the Mahaffey, what the scope of that was about $94,000. And then just a special shout out and thank you on the second page, the very first item, the Resilient St. Pete Action Plan for $80,000. Very excited to see that on there. That was for July. I did have a couple for August. Okay. All right. So on the August report, oh goodness, about 1, 2, 3, maybe 5, 6 down. The lighting dimmer system project at the Mahaffey, another $19,000 there. So if you could lump that into what we did in July, that would be great. And then the last one I have on that one, further down the page, the July invoice for food and equipment for Feeding Tampa Bay program. There's another $12,000. I'd like to know where that was, like, what city facility? Was it the program through the Sunshine Center, or where exactly that was?
Okay.
So I think that is all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Driscoll.
Thank you. I'm not sure, my guess on the Feeding Tampa Bay thing, because it's Evora, was that it's over on the Deuces, where they have, so, because I know Feeding Tampa Bay does work out of there, so.
Right.
But
That's why I asked.
yeah, it'd be great to hear that, so thank you for bringing that up. I wanted to ask about the July, the last one on the first page there, regarding the Seagrass Mitigation Bank and the marine signage manufacturing and installation. I have been meaning to ask Claude or Brej for an update on when, where we're at with that whole project.
Yeah, we can get you an update.
So-
We'll get council an update on the project.
Yes, that would be wonderful, just even, just high level.
Yeah, we'll get an
what's
email
going
out
on.
to council.
Okay, great, thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Committee members, anything else on procurement? Okay. All right, well, we've got upcoming meetings on December 11th, where we'll be talking 2026 health insurance renewal, and then January 15th, 2026, St. Pete Fire Rescue Department Management Evaluation Annual Progress Update. Where we will be joined by Chief Watts. If there's nothing else for the good of the order, November 6th BF&T is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Chair. We've adjourned, TV.
in the neighborhood that it's in.
What's the message you want to convey to folks who might be from out of town that see that?
I just want them to feel the joy of St. Petersburg. The colors are joyful, the way the sun comes through it's a very happy thing, and I just want them to feel that.
And what drew you to this project in the first place? How'd you become
Oh my gosh,
involved?
how could you say no to that big canvas? There's 2 glasses per station,
Okay.
and each one is 5 foot by 7 foot, 16 stations, so that's a lot of glass, and that's a lot of chance to get a message across and do a lot of beautiful color.
Well, thank you. It's beautiful
My
art.
pleasure.
And it tells the story of St.
It
Petersburg.
does.
Thank you, Kathy.
My pleasure.
Today was a ribbon cutting for the Barack Obama Main Library in the city of St. Petersburg. I think it's a fitting tribute to President Obama and his commitment to education and knowledge, and it was really well received. I'm told over 1,000 folks came out here today, and just the joy and the energy from folks really reflected what St. Pete is about.
I could not be more excited. This is not just my district, this is my neighborhood. A big reason we chose this area was because we're so close to the library. My wife and I are avid readers. I'm really excited to be able to walk to such an amazing resource. It'll be full of programming.
I want the community, both our residents and our visitors, to wear the hinges out in this facility. This facility is so much more than just books. We've got 3D printers, we have engravers, we really have something for everyone at this facility.
You can tell there was a lot of attention paid to the small details, and that's what really makes a big difference. From the artwork that's on the wall to the flooring, just little things that when they all come together create magic, and I think that's what you see here.
After 5 years of having the facility closed, it is so exciting to be able to open this facility. I've had the privilege of walking through it numerous times, and to know that everybody that was in front of me was going to get to see it for the first time this morning, Christmas morning is the only way I can describe it.
The same moment I looked at the lake and the back doors of this library, a smile came over to my face and a calmness came over my soul. And I imagined generations to come finding a safe, unbelievably beautiful place to learn, to explore, and to grow. And in that moment, I felt the weight and joy of what this library represents to all of us here in the city of St. Petersburg, and a place of hope for our future. Thank you, and congratulations.
This is the municipal gateway to education. You can come here to learn to read, you can learn to socialize, you can get on a computer if you don't have something like that at home. It's really just an asset that shows high quality public goods can be delivered by your local government, and that's what we're doing here.
This library clearly has been designed not only for the way people are using libraries today, which is very different, but you can tell there was a lot of thought into planning for the future and how libraries will continue to evolve.
We're going to have the next leaders of our city and nation for generations start here at the main library, just like I did and many others did. So this is one of the best investments we can make in our city. Come down, get your library card, and build your journey to success right here.
Hey, that's my house, and this is my ASMR video about water conservation. I use water wisely. Ever have a drippy sink? You should fix it to not waste water, and also not to go crazy with that dripping noise. Look there, that's my automatic shut-off hose attachment. Super water conservative. Even when nature calls, I call nature and I say, "Hi, I'm conserving water with my high-efficiency tank." Okay, bye. Oh, hey, that's me. just using my high-efficiency washer. Just listen to the sounds of water being conserved. Go to this website to learn more, St. Pete, and do what you can for water conservation.
My name is William Clifton. I work at the tire shop for the city of St. Petersburg. I'm a tire and wheel specialist. My general responsibilities are to make sure everything rolls. We just make sure everybody's rolling safe. We deal with garbage trucks, fire department, wheelbarrows, forklifts. We pretty much deal with anything that has a tire. Some days it's 10, 20, and some days we're just non-stop. I know there's over 100 sanitation trucks. I think there's roughly 300 police vehicles, upwards of 1,000 or better. We have the big loaders. I think that's probably the heaviest, the biggest tire. Smallest, I've worked on probably forklift tires, the rear tires on a forklift, or wheelbarrow tires. I love the work. The work is fun. I mean, I like working with my hands. I feel like the tire shop is an integral part in the city because without us, nothing rolls. No fire truck, no police department, no water department, no tractors, no backhoes. All that comes to us. Well, right before Hurricane Irma came here last year, we were the last group of people out of the compound, and we were the first people in the compound back to work. We got somebody that needs tires right away. You can have all the running vehicles you want, but without tires, they're going nowhere.
I look at Woodlawn as probably the most neighbor-friendly, kid-friendly neighborhood that I've ever lived in. It's a wonderful neighborhood to grow up in. I wish I was a kid growing up in this neighborhood.
It's a real family-oriented community, super close to downtown, and it's just kind of one of those picturesque, nice, quaint little neighborhoods.
I think what was really cool about the neighborhood is it's different compared to a lot of the other neighborhoods where part of it is on the circle. So as soon as we drove in on the neighborhood looking for a house, I just knew that this neighborhood had kind of some extra character to it.
Woodlawn has got a circular style to it, design to it, and you can see from some of these old pictures that there really is a circle or an oval to Woodlawn neighborhood.
My favorite part of the day is driving home. You turn onto our street from MLK, and there's beautiful oak trees, blooming crepe myrtles, and then there's a park. We have a park just at the end of our street. So here in Woodlawn, we have 3 public parks within our community.
We use those parks a lot for our garage sale in the fall. There's cookouts that go on in those neighborhood parks, and they become very handy.
And that's where we have all of the holiday events, all of our neighborhood events, potlucks, things like that. But then on the weekends, you can just kind of go out there and hang out. So I worked out in the park, take my dog to the park. There's a basketball hoop for the neighborhood kids to hang out. Got it!
As the fall and into the winter and into the holiday season, every one of those little pocket parks gets used for certain events.
Christmas caroling going on during Christmas. There's an Easter egg hunt through the neighborhood. Halloween is huge in this neighborhood.
And then Halloween, you forget about it. It is crazy around here.
Woodlawn likes to party.
So, like everything, trees come and go, and a lot of the trees in this neighborhood are laurel